walked out and I said, did he give me permission to do that? Cafe Mocha. And $500 million. Somebody black just walk up, they just go. But can I tell you a story? And they squeeze your hand, and they go. And walk off. Can I tell you stories in the book? I started a cuss jar because I heard Howard Stern cuss a woman out. So I went to the president of SiriusXM, and I said, can I do what Howard Stern does? He says, well, I've heard you slip up every now and then, and it's organic. I said, but sure. I said, now, whoa, wait a minute. Howard's a 6'5" white guy that you guys are paying $500 million to or more. And if I cuss out some white woman or white man, will you have my back? And he said, yeah. Now, I have my wife with me as the executive producer. She's always with me because she's the witness. And we walked out, and I said, did he give me permission to do that? She said, oh, I think he did. So I started doing it. And every now and then, little old ladies would call up, God bless them. Oh, Mr. Madison, you really shouldn't do that. I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm gonna put $1, and I first called it a swear jar. But then George Wallace said, black folks don't swear, they cuss. We cuss. And so I changed it to a cuss jar. Now this goes back to what you said about palming. Right. I'm at Morehouse. We're doing a voter registration, get out the vote drive. Afterward, we're taking selfies. Right. Folks stand up, and the ministers, I walked out of there with $400 in cash, and for the cuss jar, and most of the money came from ministers. They were like, keep cussing. I can't cuss, but you are a surrogate cussing. I had a woman in Tulsa. She said, now, Roland, I'm going to give you this money, but baby, can you just stop cussing? I said, look, I know how you feel. I said, but sometimes, I said, look, some stuff got to be said. The show is called Unfiltered. I said, I got to keep it real. Well, and the reality, if you can let Howard Stern do it, then I mean, I cuss. Now, I don't cuss like Reese cuss. No. Now, Reese. Yeah. Reese cuss. Oh, is that right? But see, and every now and then, I have to invoke Jackson, man. Samuel. But look, people. Is two. Before I met Reese, there were two people who I thought. First of all, I thought before I met Jennifer Lewis, Sam Jackson was the absolute king of motherfuckers. But when I met Jennifer Lewis, she became the queen of motherfuckers. But Reese is the princess of Reese. Okay, this is how I got to know Reese. Reese would do these videos on Twitter. Right. Joe, I'm talking about. She uses more cuss words in 2 minutes than a whole lot of people, but she killing it now. She killing it. And so I said, man, I said I gotta put her on the air. So she comes on the air, so she's sitting in the air, and so she's talking. I'm like, that ain't why I called your ass. I'm like, so after about 3 or 4 appearances, I said, look, I need you to do you. I said, I ain't invite your ass here to be somebody else. The person doing them videos, ever since then, oh, Lord. What my girl say, let your freak flag fly, let your cuss flag fly. Well, it goes back again. In the book, I have a chapter about success. And there was 3 things that I was told. Be original, be authentic, and then be daring. And when you look at folks, and particularly in our business, what you're doing, for example, nobody does this. It's original. You're authentic. When you see Roland Martin, you get Roland Martin. Your guests are all authentic. That's really the formula of success. But I say this, Roland. One of the thing I wanted the book to do was to be in my voice. Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the most difficult things I had with the editor and Dr. Kent, because they started writing it in their voice. And I always go back to what somebody said about Malcolm X and Alan Taylor. Because Malcolm used to have to kind of shake up Alex Taylor. That's not not what I'm thinking about. So I wanted it to be in my voice. The other thing I wanted was people to understand that you use your platform, and I always remember something else. There's a chapter in there that the late Professor Ron Walters said, and that was he gave a lecture, and a student asked, he chastised students about moments. You go in, you have a demonstration, you leave, right? Go back to the campus, go back to wherever. You just had a moment, right? What moment? Was a moment. It was a moment. And so one of the students said, well, Professor, what's the difference between a moment and a movement? And he said, sacrifice. All movements in human history require sacrifice. And sometimes that's what you do. I had to sacrifice a job. I tell this story in Philadelphia. It's my first full-time talk show. I moved from Detroit. That was my political base. Children were born. I moved everybody to Philadelphia. And I was doing a show, now get this, midnight to 5:30 in the morning. And I was the only black. And I had the program director and the owner tell me, now this is after... In Philadelphia. We're getting too many calls and letters, because this is before social media. You're talking about black folk too much. And so, you know me. So the next day, I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to interview two people, different viewpoints. So it was Ron Brown, because he was running to be chairman of the DNC, the first black chairman. So I had Ron Brown on 1 hour. And then the next hour, I interviewed Louis Farrakhan. I was gone. and
you said y'all want to see black?
And then when I came to and all of this is in the book. So I'm doing a TV that Geraldo was. It was the first beginning of talk radio.
Right.
And there was this argument about black folk, and talk radio. Wanted a lot of black folk, and the program director of WABC, Geraldo asked him, why don't you have any black folk in New York, and you don't have a single black person? And he said, oh, well, we'll have to think about it. And somebody spoke up and said, well, you do have a black person. And I can't remember the man's name now. And he said, oh, but we don't think of him as black. And that debate is what sort of got me into Washington. And because the program director said, well, they don't want you in Philly, we want you in Washington. But I did say this. I'm not going here and replacing another black. See, they have one black person. And I said, so if you're going to hire me and fire her, then I don't want the job, because I'm not going to play that game.
Right.
It's about sacrifice. And then take your platform, and you do this all the time. Go to a war zone in Sudan. I swear, I asked, and Geraldo can be upset if he wants to. I've been in that war in South Sudan had gone back and forth at least 6 times. I kept asking people who had more resources than I had, come with me. I mean, he asked me, well, can we get in and out of South Sudan in a day? What hotel are we going to stay in? Excuse me, we're sleeping in the bush. It's a war going on.
Yeah.
He just walked away. And I think at the time he was with ABC. And then I've had some brothers who I've asked to go with me, and they would say, well, there's a war going on. You don't see the folks at CNN. Everybody's clamoring to get over there because there's a war going on. And the other final thing I wanted people to understand in the book was people tend to look at us as we are now.
Right.
They see you. They say, oh, man, he's got a nice suit on. Brother, I was not born with this suit on.
Right. I always say, no. Everybody want to talk about Bishop T.D. Jakes today. They don't want to talk about when he was digging ditches in West Virginia.
Or when I was 10 years old, my grandfather hauled trash. That's how he made a living. Separated metals, paper, and I worked with him. Those days they called it a dump. Today it's a landfill. And that's how I spent my summers. That's how I made my money. So in the book I talk about going from working and my grandfather saying to me, you don't like this, do you? What is there to like? No, I don't like this. And he said, well then you got two choices. And that is you either go to the military, in those days he said the Army, or you go to college. But come 18, you're getting out of here. And I talk about in the book that I go from working in a dump to interviewing the first black president of the United States in the Oval Office. And so I just want people to understand that none of us in this business, all of us in this business have to use our platform. And that's what you were talking about all this evening. Yeah. You got to use it. Everybody can do something. And that's been my mantra. No matter who you are, everybody can do something. I can't do what you do. This place is, I wish people could see where I am. This is magnificent. Man, you ought to be renting this out the stoop to all kind of folks. But everybody...
That's on the list.
But everybody can do something.
The thing that you talked about being talk radio, the general public really doesn't think about this. How white folks absolutely dominate talk radio.
Oh, yes.
But not just talk radio, sports talk radio.
Oh.
And so how people, I tell people all the time, the media is the second most powerful institution in the world.
First being
guns, the military. Get the guns. Any coup is guns first, media second. And just what you said is what you do with it. So you've seen other folks and how they frame stories and how they've talked about stories and how they've talked about individuals. The white loud Republican, how he dogging Phyllis Randall. No, we're going to have Phyllis on. And again, it's framing. And I tell people all the time, you cannot ignore the reality of how powerful media is in shaping the hearts and minds of the public.
That's right. And the other thing I always talk about, and that is, and this is what makes your show so fascinating and popular. You hear me say, put it where the goats can get it.
Yeah, I tell people that all around the country. I said, as Joe Madison says, put it where the goats can get it.
That is, I came, and I'm kind of intimidated with all these distinguished professors. I am absolutely, especially my man from Howard.
Oh, Greg.
I am. But let me tell you, I came back from college, and I believe it was a Thanksgiving dinner. My grandfather, Clarksdale, Mississippi, no more than a 6th grade education, wasn't because he was dumb. It was just what it was.
Jim Crow as well,
Jim Crow. And I'm trying to wax eloquently about this philosophy teacher and my grandfather looked, he said, Joseph, why don't you put it where the goats can get it? And I said, what the heck is he talking about? It's an old country saying, goats eat down to the root. They go beyond the top and they go all the way down. And he said, if you can explain it to me so that I understand it, I imagine that teacher with a PhD would probably understand too.
Right.
And this is what irritates me about all of these talking heads that you see on news shows is I just wish they would just somebody used to say, explain to me like I'm in the second grade.
It's real basic.
Just basic.
I mean, we used to always cross paths during Lou Dobbs' show when he was sane. When he was at CNN.
People don't believe, but at one point he was sane.
Lou Dobbs was absolutely sane. Right, then he had a lobotomy and he lost his damn mind. Actually, it was talk radio that actually changed him.
Yes, it was.
It was when he got that radio show.
When he got that contract with that
because when he got the radio show, it was around the same time that Rush Limbaugh signed for $100 million.
Yes.
And Lou, that's what caused Lou to lose his damn mind. So we used to always do these shows together, and you're absolutely right. One of the things that made me so popular on CNN is I told it straight.
That's right.
I mean, I wasn't sitting here, and it was a trip because they tried to change my wardrobe. Absolutely. They tried to change. They always wanted, this is how we do it. I said, whoa, let me explain something to y'all. I ain't them. I remember sitting on the set one day, and Joel Klein with Time Magazine was sitting there, and someone said something. I said, look, I ain't him. I said, first of all, look at him. I said, he got dirt on his jacket. He wearing some khaki pants and this boring ass blue shirt. I said, I don't know about y'all, but shit, I'm clean. That ain't me. I said, I ain't gonna never look like him. So I don't care what that, because I used to have a clothes rack that was in my office. I had suits, I had shirts, I had cufflinks, and I would be on the air daytime and nighttime. And they would go, you wouldn't change clothes? I said, a brother can't wear the same thing in prime time he wore in daytime. So they were always trying to figure out. I said, y'all, I'm going to do me.
That's right.
And I understood the audience, how to speak to the audience. And the reason that thing I knew was trip, 2008, the debates had already been scheduled. The first two debates, I had speeches. I wasn't in the studio.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
And we lost the first two debates CBS. So the third debate, I had another speech. I'm flying from speech. The president worldwide calls me. I get a voicemail. Hey, Roland, it's Jim. Buddy, nothing urgent. Give me a call when you can. When the worldwide CEO calls you and say nothing urgent, you know it's urgent.
Yeah, you know it.
So I knew exactly what. So I called my agent, Mark Watson, and said, Mark, we're probably going to move that speech next week. I think he's telling me we need you. And when I called him, he said, we need you on set.
Right.
So I go on set, and that's when they had them huge panels. So they had about 10 of us up there. It was 9. It was 8 panelists. It was 9 panelists. It was 2 anchors. They had 8 seats. So I'm standing up. I was like, who could be the first black person to see me, who called me or send me an email about me standing up? It was Spike Lee. Black man can't get a chair? So when the night was over, I was like, yo, what the hell was up with that? They said, oh, no. We wanted everybody to see that you were here.
Yeah.
That's what they told me.
Yeah.
That's when you understand how you have an impact on people, and it's who you're communicating with. You have been doing that, but Sirius is one thing. But talk about, again, being in D.C. and dealing and talking just regular, ordinary folk, the folk like your grandfather, and how they have a commitment to say, we're going to ride with you, Joe. We got your back no matter what happens.
I think you get to a certain point where they just can't deny you. Look, they know you're professional. And I think there's the other issue. I'll say this. They know you'll walk out the door. I mean, I will walk out the door. Can I add something, though? But I got to get off that point. You were talking about Jackie Robinson. I think the piece you did was superb. I wanted to remind everybody that this summer, Rachel Robinson is going to be 100 years old.
Indeed.
And if you're going to talk about Jackie Robinson, you got to talk about Rachel Robinson. And I'll say this may tick a lot of people off. I said it yesterday at George Washington University. I have a Jackie Robinson project that they won't fund. The university won't fund it. They have to raise their own money. And I said yesterday, maybe if Will Smith had just stopped and paused for a moment and thought about Jackie Robinson and what was said to Rachel in those stands. They called her everything but a child of God. And I said, and he had a bat in his hand.
Yeah.
And maybe he just should have thought about Jackie Robinson and what was said about him and the woman he was married to till the day he died. Now, I know there's an argument about who should have slapped who or not slapped and that kind of thing. And I personally also think that there ought to be curriculum in every college about Jackie Robinson's legacy, because it was more than just baseball.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you read his book, I Never Had It Made.
He was a business person. I mean, the professors know better.
And was hardcore and challenged his own Republican Party.
And there's another issue, too, I've been getting on. Fort Hood.
Court
now,
martial.
first of all, well, he was court-martialed. There is an effort and a petition to change the name of Fort Hood to the Jackie Robinson base.
Really?
Yes. Look it up. And by the way, so let's start with who was Hood. He was a Confederate general. He was a Confederate general who, by the way, quit the military. So I want the audience out there to go look it up. And I think that's one of the next things that since they're talking about changing the names of these bases.
And one of the hardest things to find is the TNT movie where Andre Breyer played Jackie Robinson. It was called The Court Martial of Jackie Robinson. I admit you cannot find that anywhere.
Yeah.
I remember watching it, and it may be still on VHS tape, but not even on DVD. I got some other questions. I'm gonna bring in the panelists here now, so they can ask that.
Really?
You
didn't tell me. Now I got to take an exam from you.
Yeah, you do. So I ain't gonna go to the professor first, because we gonna ease into it. So the cusser, the chief cusser, Roland Unfiltered, who's also a contributor on Sirius XM, the Clay Kane Show, Reese Colbert. Reese, your question for Joe Madison.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction and dubbing me the princess of cussing. Joe Madison, it's such an honor to be in company with you on this show. So thank you for blessing us with so many gems. A question that I have for you is, now I feel like news in our society and our attention span moves so fast. You have such a long career, and I'm just curious, did it feel like that in the other kind of historic and significant eras that we've been through, that things were moving fast and it was easily forgotten? Or does it feel a little bit different, like we have to, push harder to really, get people to see the gravity and the momentous part of what we are experiencing?
And I have to apologize.
Putting into context,
I didn't hear the first part.
Putting into context this moment that we're in, all the different things that are going on. How does it compare to other eras that when you've been on?
Nothing has really changed other than the characters, and also the means of communicating is a lot faster. I think the reality is. War is war. Inflation is inflation. Black folk have always had to survive, as Roland and all of you were explaining the first part of the show. It's something. Maybe the best way to put it, like putting it where the goats can get it. It's Jim Crow's sophisticated cousin. I always refer to him as James Crow Esquire. Same attempts to maintain white supremacy. No ifs, ands, buts about it. It's just more sophisticated. And they've learned a few tricks. But the reality is that it's just sophisticated. And we have to do more reading. We have to do more researching, and I also say this. It's, again, in the book Radioactive, it's cultural conditioning. Now, what do I mean by cultural conditioning? And you've been saying this all morning, all evening long. America is culturally conditioned to believe that white is superior, black is inferior, and the manifestation of that cultural conditioning is that blacks are undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. And some of us are culturally conditioned to believe, to undervalue, underestimate, and marginalize ourselves. And you were talking about the monarchs. You can have both monarchs and blacks in Major League. I mean, but we have to recondition our culture, and culture is the
for me. I say reprogram.
Yeah, but it's the same thing,
right?
And culture is the hardest thing to change.
Yeah.
And in any country, culture is the most difficult thing.
But see, what you said about when you talked about Will Headstock and talked about Jackie Robinson. Mm-hmm. It's about being intentional. Just what I was saying, when I was picking shoes, I could have said, I'm gonna wear a white pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. No. I'm gonna specifically wear those because they're black-owned company. That means stopping yourself, thinking it through, taking that moment, thinking it through, and no, I'm wearing these for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is, we have gotten, first of all, I tell people all the time, we have to really not appreciate, but understand how powerful white supremacy was in terms of how so deeply ingrained into our psyche and white folks that, we can look at something, and I get it all the time where somebody's like, but we gonna get you a real show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. What the hell is it? What you mean real?
Oh, let me tell you about it.
And they really mean white.
Yeah, I have a chapter in the book where I talk about, people always ask, how did you get the handle Black Eagle? And when I first started using that handle, folks went crazy on the radio. I mean, these white people went nuts. Now the managers didn't, because they're gonna tell me I can't say it. And let me tell you how it came about. I was following Oliver North. We're in a meeting with a talk show consultant who was bragging about Oliver North. Oliver North had never done talk radio before. Oh, he's the Captain Kirk of this this Enterprise ship. And I said, well, what are we? We're not oatmeal. I mean, what are we? He brushed me off. So I left the meeting and got in the car with Dick Gregory. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to start calling myself the Black Eagle. I'm in Washington.
Right.
National bird is the eagle. And I said, but have you ever heard of a Black Eagle? He said, no, but I think tomorrow morning we're going to be hearing about it. But guess what happened? I find God is fate. I'm looking at National Geographic, and they do a special on eagles. And the biggest, largest eagle species is a Black Eagle.
Wow.
And then you would have white folks call in and say, well, if you the Black Eagle, I'm the white pigeon. And I said, well, just remember, eagles eat pigeons. So, I mean, I just think you have to be original, you have to be authentic, and you have to be daring.
Yep.
That is, and who told me that was Aretha Franklin.
The queen.
Yeah, because when you hear Aretha Franklin, that's who you hear, and you know it.
Yeah.
And remember, she wasn't a big success when she first started out because she was doing other people's.
She was doing covers.
When she decided to be authentic,
there you go.
That's when she became a hit.
There you go.
That's why, and I say this, and that's why I consider you a brother and a friend. You're authentic. And people need to understand that. You are authentic. And folks just don't like it, just like get used to it.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Terrain Walker.
First of all, Joe, it's an honor and a privilege to be in space with you, first of all. This is amazing. My question to you is, well, there's always been a history with black entertainers and black reporters and black radio people where they were basically the voices of the community, and they were able to interpret world events to the community. And my question to you is, do you feel like some of that legacy is lost? How can we bring that back? We revitalize the idea of black people like yourself and Roland being the heroes for the community and interpreting black community to the world of black people.
We've always had in these cities, in each one of these cities, you had a black eagle, you had that voice.
Yes.
It could have been a DJ, could have been
Yes.
a talk show host, could have been a columnist. And
there was a congressman during Reconstruction period. He was known as the Black Eagle. Yeah, go ahead.
And in many ways, I think what Duran is saying is we've lost that. So how do we bring that back where we have these voices that, to your point, that are sacrificing for the collective, and I'll add to what you said, Duran, who are not all about getting them the check, but is really about representing the people in the community.
I don't know how to answer that. I really honestly don't know. I think that's maybe one of the reasons I did the memoir, is what made you? What made you? My grandfather, working with my grandfather in the trash truck. What made you? Was my minister at St. Margaret's Church, who was a brilliant man. What made you? It was a football coach who, by the way, my first football experience, I got kicked off the team because I was active in large part in the black student movement. This is, and some of you may know this, and that is we're trying to get black studies on these campuses. Brothers are getting kicked off the football teams go read this, around the country because they wore afros or because there was a black student movement and ball players were looked up to. And if you walked around campus maybe with a black band as part of the protest, the coach would call you in and say, you take that black band or you lose your scholarship. And some folks wouldn't do it, and they sacrificed their scholarship. That's the best way that I can answer it. Our perspective is what creates us, and our experience creates our perspective. And so I guess it was all the things I went through, and that's why it was a challenge writing this book, because I had to go back, and the editor kept saying, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And so it's based on your experience. Why are you the way you are? Why are these professors the way they are? And
what makes you you?
What makes you you?
The way I would answer what Terrain asked is this way. I am who I am today because there was a black newspaper that I worked for. Mm-hmm. John Ware was a former city manager of Dallas. He left to run a $1 billion investment fund for Tom Hicks, a big private equity guy, later bought the Texas Rangers. When I was at Tom Jonas BlackAmericanWeb.com, and then when I got fired from there, and I was sitting here trying to do some other stuff, and I would call John. And this is what John always said. He said, Roland, it doesn't matter. Just get a platform that you control. Mm. So the way we do that, Terrain, we have to create the platforms. Right. So when I launched this show, it was never going to only be me. Mm-hmm. The moment I launched, I said, I'm going to be the tent pole. I'm going to be the axis. And so the people I bring on, then that's going to then create who stands out, create a show for them. So now Faraji has a daily show. Here was Faraji, a 25-year-old young brother from Baltimore, coming on my TV One show, and I was like, all right, well, he got something. And then I created Faraji, we're gonna do this daily show, and so bring him on. And then Greg, Greg, I'm thinking about this here, and that wasn't even a Black Star Network. And even before Greg was doing what he's doing with Karen Hunter, we were talking about, okay, we create this, but I got to build this first. Yeah. And then my wife's show, and then Deborah Owens is doing, and then there are 4 or 5 other shows. Right. People been hit me, Roland, what a Reese show. I'm like, calm down, y'all. Like, calm down. I got a plan. Everybody chill. But that's really it. If we don't build the ecosystem terrain, then you're not going to have the voices, because there has to be a place where who owns it gives you the freedom to develop your voice, cultivate your voice, cultivate your rhythm, your tone, all those different things. That takes time, and you ain't going to get it over there. It was Jonathan Rogers. Everybody, this is no disrespect. It was not Kathy Hughes. It was not Alfred Liggins. It was Jonathan Rogers, who was the founding CEO of TV One, who said, I'm going to put you on. America needs to hear your voice, but we got to get the network built first. Jonathan got the job and called me. Yeah. He called Royal, his wife, first, called me. TV One wasn't even named. But he told me that, but I had to be patient. That's how I got developed.
Same thing happened with the Sirius XM. I was on WOL, Radio 1, and satellite radio was created. They did not have a black talk platform. Did not have one. And Nate Davis, brilliant. He was president. And no one thought that satellite radio would take off. You remember that?
Nate Davis, y'all black.
And Nate Davis, brilliant, just as quiet. And he said, you know what? We need this channel. Because, Sirius is like, I always look at it, it's like a bookstore. Yeah. And if you don't like what's on channel 26 or 126, go over to another, I forget how many channels there are. So it's like, if you don't like this book in this section, then go to another section. And Nate Davis came to me and said, we have got to have a platform and initially it was the Power. Right. Now, they know how I feel about that. It should have stayed the Power. But, some brother came on and said, well, I don't like news, and the Power sounds so 60-ish, and I'm blowing him out, but that's okay. And he said, let's change it to urban view.
First of all, I hate when they slap urban on anything. I'm like, just say black shit. Don't. Yeah. I hate. Dude, okay. But I can't stand when they throw urban in it or soul.
But wait a minute, you got the Patriots channel, right? So that's the right wingers. You've got what is it? Progress. And that's
the liberal channel.
Basically the liberal.
The POTUS channel.
Politics of the United States. Now, why can't you, and I've argued this, why can't you have the black channel with all these brilliant minds you have and call it the Power? And so what I've been told is, it is what it is now. You guys are really popular, so don't change it. And I'm saying, okay, I'm still gonna cuss. No, I'm teasing.
Dr. Greg Carr.
Oh, I'm really intimidated now. Oh,
no, God. It's the opposite, Baba. I tell you, man, I could just sit here and listen to you all night. I want to add my honor and respect given to you, like Reese and Terrain said. Every time that I've been around you and seen you, it's just an honor, brother. Sometimes to shake your hand and stand there and listen. I remember the first time I saw your studio is Sirius XM in DC. I went down to do Wilma Leon's show on the weekend. We walked by, I said, that's where the Black Eagle sits. And I'll never forget that. But I guess my question is very broad. and it kind of echoes what Reese was asking, Brother Madison. And I know my old classmate Dave Canton probably gave you hell because he, like me, is an academic, trying to put words in your mouth, and you had to get him straight. But he says in the beginning of your book there, Radioactive, he says, you always remind us to listen with our third ear.
Right.
And so looking forward, and you and Roland are really talking about this, but I wonder what you see with your third eye, what you hear with your third ear about the future of media generally. I don't know if radio will ever be displaced. I mean, we all grew up on radio. Hearing your voice got us through many a challenge in our community. But I wonder, as you're looking forward with legacy media seemingly coming apart at the seams, what do you see in terms of breaking through all the noise and really capturing the imagination of our people, particularly as it relates to information? And thank you for your continuing work, Bob.
With this whole piece about listening with the third ear and reading with the third eye, that came from a older politician. I remember the ride from Detroit to Lansing. He was a state senator, and he said, "Look, young man, I was just brand new running the NAACP." And he said, the best of what's his name, Will Rogers. Will Rogers? He said, yes, there's a book out, read The Best of Will Rogers. Now, who is Will Rogers? Will Rogers was like the Johnny Carson of his day on radio. He was the one that would say, Congress is the second oldest profession. I mean, and people would listen to him.
Oh, homespun.
Oh yeah, but political humor.
Yeah.
He was now. The other thing he said was listen with a third ear and read with a third eye. See, and so to answer your question, too often, and we take what we see and not realize what's really being done in the background. That's that third eye that you see. What is that news story? What's really behind that news story? So radio will always be around. I think it was a point in time where I think we used to say whenever people would take over a country, there would be a revolution. The first thing they take over is the radio station.
Yeah. After the military, it's media.
They take over the radio station, and we see that
radio station, newspapers.
And so here's where I think it's going, and that is everybody now is a potential communicator.
Yep.
Right with this, everybody now is and we're seeing it. Yep. Like the story out of Michigan,
yep.
Where that Grand Rapids, and think this guy, the passenger, became a reporter.
There you go.
He pulled that young girl in Minnesota.
That's why I give lessons on the air saying, shoot horizontal, please, so it fills the whole screen up.
Yeah.
Don't shoot vertical. We get the black bars. I tell everybody, shoot video, shoot like this.
Now the other thing is that, and I know folks like to criticize the younger generation, but I tell you, I did my hunger strike, and folks thought it was crazy. Mm-hmm. But I knew what I was doing because Dick Gregory and I used to. He taught me how to do it, and he taught me why you do it. You do it to get attention.
Right.
You get it to get the people. Now we didn't get the legislation because we had two Democratic senators that just were traitors to our cause. But you know what we did? We woke up a younger generation. They now know what a filibuster rule is. They now know how Congress works. Young folk went on hunger strikes that you couldn't get them to pass a fast food place. They realized we have to make sacrifices. We woke up a generation, and Doctor, I will say this to you, and I say this with all due respect. Quit talking about passing the torch. Now I'll tell you why. I'm not going to pass my torch. I'm going to hold on to my torch. I'll light your torch.
Right.
So because if I pass my torch on to you, I'm in the dark.
Right.
I'm in the dark.
I use the relay example. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
When in the relay, this is what I explain to people.
But you gotta keep running, though.
Right. First of all, right. You're running at the same time they're running.
Right.
When you stick it out, they have to reach back. And there's a point when both of you are holding the baton at the very same time,
right. Yeah.
And then you gotta let that baton go.
And that generation has to run faster than we did.
There you go. So what I tell folks, I've always hated that phrase too. Even when I was 20, 30, I hated that phrase because what it said to a lot of people is, I'm just gonna sit here and do nothing. I wish all we would get out of the way. We were on. I'll never forget. It was after Trayvon Martin, after the Zimmerman decision. He's found not guilty. And folks were they were shocked. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the night. It was a Saturday night. Deltas had their national convention here. I was actually at their step show, and the thing just circulated. And by 3 o'clock in the morning, probably about 800 people around the world who were on the phone. The next night, it was like 2,000 people who were on the phone. People just wanted to talk. It was interesting. They had no place to. They were like they wanted to go to some place to convene. And they basically turned to a talk show. What was a trip is that, so a group of black folks 20, 30, 40s, started convening. It was very interesting, and so we're on these calls. And one of the things, Joe, about really smart people, don't sometimes know how to slow down. So they're sitting here, and they was like, call for do this and do that, and this, and the website, they're going on and on. And so Jeff Johnson and I, we chilling. Jeff goes, folks, I'm just curious. Who are we targeting? Who do we say we're speaking for? So Jeff and I, we started communicating on this deal. So that was this young lady who hit Jeff, and she was like, I'm tired of these old heads like rolling my. Why is he on the call? And Jeff said, let me ask you a question. You think he arrogant? He was like, and? He said, but who else on the call has a national platform? He said, he the only one. Then he said, who else on this call, if we needed somebody to kick off what we were doing and put $10,000 on the table, who could do it and not blink? He said him. He said, why in the hell would you not want that person at the table? That's part of that whole thing with this folk fighting and who I don't want in the room. I'm like, hey, if you got something to contribute, we all can be.
Everybody can do something.
Everybody.
Look, Rosa Parks lit my torch. In the book, we talk about we boycotted the city of Dearborn, and because an issue with a park. Dearborn is not the Dearborn you know now.
Right.
It was a sundown town, and the dusted sundown, and the black population was less than 1%. Some black folk. Here's Dearborn. Here's Detroit. You cross the street, you're in Dearborn. Some folks went over and went to a park shelter. People came in and said, "Well, you can't. This is Dearborn Park. You can't have this. It was a public park. You can't use this shelter." And lo and behold, we're reading again the newspaper. A good friend of mine, he worked at John Conyers' office. Rosa Parks worked there, and he said, "We got to do something about this. This is a public park." So we got together and said, "Okay, fine. We'll boycott the city of Dearborn." So, they had a huge regional mall. Black folks were spending their money. We did, and Rosa Parks said, "I'll join you." Oh, okay. And so we decided, we took a lesson from Randall Robinson and the boycott, the boycott of the South African embassy. Mm-hmm. We did it the day before Thanksgiving. Why? Why? You know why? Because Thanksgiving Day was going to be a slow news day. Mm-hmm. So Rosa Parks and Joe Madison gets arrested in Dearborn, calls for a boycott. 70%, it was instantaneous. It was spontaneous. People stopped shopping what they call now Black Friday. Right. They stopped. Let me tell you who gave me more hell than anybody in Dearborn. The older black leadership. You did not get my permission to call a boycott. Because Henry Ford called all of the black leaders. Now Coleman Young was mayor, and there were some powerful black folk. I'm just a young 20-something NACP executive. I don't know. I wasn't even with. Yeah, I was on the political department at the time. Yeah, because I was with Ben Hooks. They called me into a meeting. This was a Saturday morning. They have eggs, bourbon, and that one of those meetings, like a kitchen cabinet. And there were some powerful folks. There was a federal judge. There was a mayor. There was a labor leader. Man, these were older brothers.
Right.
And they said, you remind me of myself when I was your age. But young man, this is Coleman Young, you got to, you didn't get my permission to call this boycott. You got Henry Ford pissed off at me and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, Mayor Young, with all due respect, I didn't think I needed your permission to call a boycott. And I have it in the book. He looked me in the eye and said, boy, you need my permission to fart in this city. But you know what? You can't stop it.
Right.
It's already happened.
Too late.
It's too late. You got to call it off. And they tried to pressure us to call it off. Mm-hmm. It was too late. And the lesson I learned was boycotts are successful one of two ways. And Ben Hooks taught me this. They're either spontaneous or they're well planned.
There you go.
And he told this group of folks who wanted me out of the city, we know it wasn't well planned because y'all didn't help him. And he pulled me out of one of these meetings and said, no, he's not, because they said, get him out of town. And he said, he's not going anywhere. Come on. He stood me up and said, come on, we're leaving. This is, and by the way, this is what young people need to understand. It's never been kumbaya.
Never.
We've always, Dr. King wouldn't go on the the bus rides, on the freedom rides, because he thought it was dangerous. Kennedy said, talk them out of it,
right.
Talk John Lewis out of it.
And they said we're still going.
Yeah, and that's why all of this is in the book, and that's why it's radioactive. And I got to give credit to Ron Daniels, our brother Ron Daniels. He said, you're just radioactive. And I always remember that from the good professor.
We're going to go 7 more minutes. I know we're over. We're going to go 7 more minutes.
See, when you have your own show, you can do that.
That's true. But I'm also, you paying. I got to pay overtime. I'm going to do this. So the panel, you can have another question. But I'm going to ask a couple first. First, who black gave you the most difficulty interviewing them? Where they were like just getting on your damn nerves, and you had to just like, where it got contentious, it got hot.
Nobody.
So was there anybody? Did you have any interview where it was a battle? It was a.
That's an interest. I hadn't thought about that, but I can't think of anybody, like you said, who was black.
soon. It would be great to hear him. Everyone is asking, can we visit as well? Ask him, but please call us. He is family to Grown Folk Talking Podcast Network. Here is one of my shows that he was super Dr. James on. I love that. So I sent you that show that I found. Isn't there something? So had I not done all of this today, we would have missed the possibility that you would participate. And so she says, hi, Yvonne. This is his daughter, Natalie. Thanks for reaching out. Sadly, my daddy passed away on Friday. It's been a very tough time for our family. If anybody is interested in coming to the community service for the day, I can share the information. He loved the Grown Folk Podcast and would always, and we would always hear him talking with you guys. You were a bright spot in his day, and we would love to have you there. That is nice. That is nice. Yeah, she was in the house. She had been there about a week before she went into the hospital. Yeah, because they were doing some work on her place. So she had to be there. You know, she had to be there for her. I hope he did everything. Well, it's okay now because she's on the house, so now that automatically goes to the best thing. Because he was going to put his father to the daughter's name. And it was just, a whole lot of business stuff that was going on. Hopefully she'll do the reverse mortgage now, though. That's what I was trying to get him to do. I beat him up. I know he's probably going to fuck me in my forehead right now. But anyway, I was trying to get him to do a reverse mortgage, but he was playing with professionals. You know, people who like professionals, like they know everything, but what they know is how they can do it. And I kept saying, Darren, you don't need to modify your mortgage. Get a reverse mortgage. You're a senior. She's a senior. You can pull money out, pay her off, and then you have control of it to leave to your daughter or whatever. You know what you want to do. I'm waiting for a lawyer. I'm waiting for a lawyer. You got it. I know what I'm doing. Hang on, let me finish. The mortgage was higher than it was before. But you know what I told him before? I said, no time. No, but I'm trying to talk to you. I said, no time. Then he called me a narcissist. You know what you are? You're a narcissist. I said, well, you know? Why? No, Jada had it on her show. She was talking about narcissists. And I was thinking, that's Ivana. I said, because you never give nobody a chance to talk. And you're always talking about yourself. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I usually talk about myself in context to whatever the conversation is. But maybe if I started, that's what. I said, but that's okay. So I was in Maryland one time. And I was like, I want to tell him something. I was like, oh, I can't tell him that I want to be a narcissist. I said, no. I don't want to be a narcissist. Oh, you gotta do that. You had me running numbers for him. I said, okay.
had a fire in the brain. But the one thing I begged him to do was to, as we were talking about the different lessons and how to put everything in place, and I was like, because he always talked about tax money. What do they do about tax money? I said, don't make that. I said, if you create videos and teach what you know, here's what you're going to get paid. When you go on that plan, you will be teaching your great-great-great-grandchildren because they will have access to those videos. How about that? So I was recording the Joe Madison